These are days and nights of venom and blood. Heroes will rise as the anchors fall.
What is up, YouTube? Dottz Gaming here, and today I'm bringing you guys a user-requested video and, in essence, a follow-up to my complete beginner guide. I was talking with someone in my last stream and asked them if they had anything that they were still confused about in relation to ESO after watching my beginner guides. And the person said that with just so much going on in the game, that they had a grasp on what everything was in essence, but they weren't sure what exactly to focus on. Like, they knew what skill points were, what the skills were, that the classes had 3 different skill lines, and that there was crafting in the game, and they had a general idea of what to do with it. But they just weren't sure how to actually go about playing the game with just everything that there was. He wasn't sure how to approach everything. So today's video is going to show you how to approach the game from 2 different perspectives. I'm going to cover 2 different ways that you can approach the game, and whichever way you choose is going to be specific to your wants and desires as a player. But I'm going to show you how to tackle the game and creating your first character from the very beginning so that you don't have to turn around one day at level 20, 30, or maybe even level 40 and regret the character that you created and the time that you put into them. This video, though, absolutely 100% requires you to have a base level knowledge of the game. And when I say base level knowledge, I mean, you understand what I mean when I say magicka, stamina, skill points, deconstruction, like different game terms. And this video is already really long as it is, and if I made it from completely ground roots, it would be a really, like, this video would be long. So if you know nothing about the game, like I'm talking nothing, I have a complete beginner guide in the description. I recommend you watch that first and then watch this second, and you will be armed with knowledge to approach the game and make your first character be the perfect main character for your needs and desires. Now, you heard me mention 2 perspectives earlier. So I'll be talking about approaching the game from 2 different perspectives, a focused perspective and an unfocused perspective. Now, the focused perspective is someone who they know what they want to do in the game. They know from the start, or they reach a point extremely early on, like within the first couple levels, where they develop a preference for something. You know, for example, you know that I want to be a tank, or I want to be a healer, or I want to be a 2-handed bow stamina DPS. You know, I watched the montages before. This looks cool. This is what I want to do. Like, in the focus perspective, you pretty much know what you want to do, but are not sure how to actually go about it. The other perspective is a more general, unfocused perspective, which I feel like the majority of the players watching this probably fall into. You aren't quite sure what you want. You kind of want to try a little bit of everything before you decide on what you want to do. But with so many different skill trees and other things to manage, you aren't sure what to approach first or where to put your skill points. Now, regardless of whichever category you think you fall into now, I would still recommend watching the whole video, as your perspective may change over the course of time. So the first thing I'm going to talk about, though, is general things that are going to apply to both perspectives I mentioned earlier, and then I'm going to get more focused and talk to each individual one. So these first couple bullet points are going to go out to everyone. So regardless of whichever perspective you feel like you fall into, the first important thing that you need to consider is your class choice. Now, I think you just need to pick a class whose theme and whose background appeals to you the most, who you think is the coolest. And with class choice, that honestly, in my opinion, is the most important thing. Being that in ESO, all classes can fit every single role, wear every single armor, and use every single weapon, I think for a new player, it's important to just pick the class that the spell animations, the abilities, the overall theme, like there's got these little blurbs here, you know, you see Sorcerer on the creation screen. Pick whichever one just appeals to you the most. And if you really, really want to do a more in-depth look, a quick Google search about the overview of each class can give you a good look into it. But I'm going to give you guys here a little too long didn't read version of the classes. Now this is going to be like, I'm talking like short AF, all right? So Dragon Knight. Think fire, spikes, dragons, scales, talons, and just general fiery badassery. That's what you're going to get with your Dragon Knight. Now, your Templar is your paladin, your priest, and your holy warrior. That's what you pretty much think of when you think of a Templar. Then you have your sorcerer. They're your mage or your warlock. They summon Daedra, dark magic for support, or can call storms for aid. And then you have your Nightblade, who is the master of stealth. You have siphoning. You can siphon your opponent's life force. You can think of like a dark theme surrounding the class and like the general rogue kind of feel to them. But keep in mind, just because, you know, the sorcerer kind of makes you feel like a mage or a warlock through their spell animations, or the Nightblade might make you kind of feel more like a roguish through your spell animations, you don't have to fall into those categories. You can branch out and be a complete, you could be a tank mage, like you could be a battle mage. And if you want, there are certain Nightblade builds I know that don't even use stealth, but just focus more on like the siphoning end of things and the dark themes within the class. You could basically take any of these classes, and if any of the elements of the class interest you, you can use that to accommodate whatever build you want to use. In terms of race, I'm going to cover race on a section-by-section basis, as what race you're going to play in this game there's a huge thing with it, but whichever race you're going to choose in this guide is going to be different based off of what perspective you have, so I will cover that later. The next thing I want to talk about is crafting. I have a full beginner's crafting guide that covers how to start crafting as a beginner and level it up your first time around, and we'll put that link in the description below. But for the purpose of this video, I'm going to talk to you guys like a too long didn't read version of the whole video. You constantly want to keep your research timers for blacksmithing, clothing, woodworking, and your horse going, even if you do not think you want to be a crafter now. You do not know how you're going to feel later in the game. I know the horse technically isn't crafting, but you still want to keep the timer going. But if you do eventually you decide you want to craft, you're going to be thankful that you started researching traits from the get-go. You also always want to deconstruct gear that you do not need for research, you won't get benefit from wearing, or that you are not like worth selling on your guild trader. Just deconstruct the gear. It's only going to help you. You're going to get crafting experience, you're going to get materials, and those materials you can sell for more gold. With enchanting glyphs, you want to deconstruct the ones that you don't need, and deconstructing gear and glyphs is the single best way to level up blacksmithing, clothing, woodworking, and enchanting. There is no better way to level up those 4 skill lines than deconstruction. With alchemy and provisioning, those can easily be power leveled, and in my opinion, you don't need to focus a super huge amount of time on them until later in the game. That's just my opinion. Once you have a stockpile of gold built up, you could just kind of spend the cash needed to power level those 2 skills, because it isn't like the other 4 where you get stuff as like a lot of stuff continually as you level for deconstruction. With alchemy and provisioning, the best way to level up is to actually craft stuff, and there's certain efficient ways to craft things to save you gold and time and getting experience, and in my opinion, it's worth those 2 are just not worth touching until later on in the game, or if you just decide, you know what, screw it, I want to spend the gold now and power level them, then by all means go ahead. But in my opinion, wait until later on. You don't need to focus on it at the start. In terms of using your gold, spending your gold as a new player, my opinion, the only things that you really should be spending your money on early on in the game are upgrading your bag to get you more space, upgrading your bank to get more space, buying your horse and upgrading your horse, as you can see on the screen right here. These are my horse upgrades. And those are the only things you absolutely need to spend your money on as a new player. Save your gold so that as you get closer to the end of the game, you'll have enough money to pay someone for a set of crafted CP160 gear, and that'll allow you to enter endgame. As soon as you eventually hit CP160, you can enter the endgame with a full set of gear, and then use that gear for whatever you want, to go farm drop sets, to go PvP, to go PvE, whatever you want. And after that, it's just all earning from there. You could spend money on motifs, you could spend money to power level crafting. You could do whatever you want with your gold. But as a new player, I really think the only things you need to worry about are bag, bank, and horse. Nothing else. That is it. The next thing I want to talk about is how you should gain experience. Now, I am a firm believer in that your first time playing this game, you should do quests while continually queuing for dungeons. Now, quests do not give a lot of experience for the net time it takes to do them, but dungeons do. Doing quests and dungeons in tandem together will get you that good balance between experiencing the game world itself and getting experience points in an extremely efficient manner. Now, going out and questing in the world not only allows you to immerse yourself in the story like I currently am with the Dark Brotherhood, oh my god, it's so good, but it also allows you to discover things like sky shards and way shrines, lore books, bookshelves, earn achievements, dies, and just feel a part of the in-game world. And that is an experience that you're not going to get if you just hardcore power level your character. So supplementing questing with dungeons will allow you to rank up your Undaunted skill line, keep your gear super current to your level, give you plenty of stuff to deconstruct, and earn an efficient amount of experience. Now just remember, this is from a first-timer's perspective. Obviously, if it's like your third or fourth time leveling, it's completely understandable if you just want to skip everything and just start grinding out champion points. But doing it this way will allow you to experience the game. You won't have to go back later on and try to collect all these sky shards and all the lore books and stuff that you missed and get way shrines. You could just play the game, earn all the stuff, and just feel a part of the world. The next thing I'm going to talk about is lycanthropy, vampirism, and just neither. Whichever, which one should I use? Generally, this is the way I look at it. If you're a stamina user, you want to use lycanthropy. Be a werewolf. If you're going to be a magicka user, be a vampire. If you're going to be a tank, it's extremely build dependent. It can actually be a hindrance if it's like not the main focus of your build and not completely centered around you being one of those two things. I recommend generally for a tank, it would be easier to use neither and just be a normal human. Now remember, you do not have to be a vampire if you're a magic user or a werewolf if you're a stamina user. There's a risk reward for playing a vampire or a werewolf, and you need to decide for yourself and for the build that you want to play if you want to play one. Personally, I think it's a good idea, and like I said, what you pick is going to vary based on the resource that you use. But again, I just love Elder Scrolls vampires. I just like them. So I made my character a vampire. So you kind of need to decide if you want to be super min-maxy, find out for your build if it's going to benefit you. And if you're just like me and, while you want to focus on being good, you also want to have some good aesthetics, then go with the vampire or the werewolf. And even then, getting the vampire, I can speak on, gives me some really good passives that I would not otherwise have as a non-vampire, and is going to give me significant boosts to my magicka and my magicka-based things at the cost of being more susceptible to fire. Again, risk-reward. So you just have to decide for your playstyle if that is what you want. Alrighty, now it's time to get a little bit more specific. So for those of you who have the focused perspective, I'm going to cover your stuff first. So if you are following in the focused path, you pretty much have a rough idea of what you want to do. You just kind of want some guidance with how to actually get there. Now here is my list of things that I think how you should be approaching ESO. I don't even know if that was a sentence, but I did my best. And I personally fell into this category as one of the stuff I'm going to talk about with you is the stuff that I personally didn't follow, because like I said, I pretty much knew what I wanted to do with my character as soon as I started playing the game, because I watched some videos about ESO prior to playing. Now, race choice matters a lot in ESO. It matters a lot. Choosing the right race is going to allow you to perform optimally in the role you want to fill. I have an entire video that covers this on my channel, and I'm also going to link that in the description below if you want a super detailed explanation. But if you just want again, too long did not read version, this is it. If you're going to be a stamina user, you want to be either a Khajiit, a Red Guard, or a Wood Elf. If you're going to be a magicka user, you want to be a Dark Elf, a High Elf, or a Breton. And if you're going to tank, you want to be a Nord, an Imperial, or an Orc. In terms of attribute points, it's very, very simple. If you want to play a stamina-based build, you're going to dump all of your points into stamina. If you're going to play a magicka-based build, you're going to dump all your points into magicka. And if you're going to play a tank, it depends on your preferred stat, whether or not you kind of want to be a magicka-based tank or a stamina-based tank. And again, you're just going to dump all your points into that resource. Now, you're probably wondering, I don't need health as a tank. Generally, health points are not needed, as health for tanks are normally acquired through your gear enchants and food buffs, and there reaches a point of diminishing returns with health. You kind of reach like a soft, I don't know if it's a soft cap or a hard cap, but regardless, it is a cap. So the health points kind of have diminishing returns, so you're just better off dumping your points all into your preferred resource. The next topic I'm going to cover is skills and skill points, as this generally is what trips up a lot of people. Skill points, gear, those three things really trip people up. But we're going to start with skills and skill points. You want to put at least one skill from each of your class skill lines on your front and back bar. So for speaking for a Nightblade, Assassination, Shadow, and Siphoning, I want to make sure that on both my bars, I have at least one ability from each line. This makes sure that I get the passive bonuses from each of the skill lines, and make sure that I'm constantly progressing my class skill lines at all times. Other skill points should be placed in relevant weapon and armor trees that you plan on using, or world/guild trees if you want to use, let's say, Mage's Guild or Fighter's Guild abilities. In terms of passives, you want to put skill points into all of your class passives. So this is underneath my Assassination tree. I want all of these passives. Underneath Shadow, I want all of these passives. You also want to put points into your relevant gear passives. So for me, I'm really focusing on these light armor passives. But since I also wear one piece of medium and one piece of heavy gear, I put passives into the ones that do not require me to have 5 pieces or more equipped, because I still will get benefits from having these passives, and then same thing for heavy armor. You also want to put passives into your weapon choice. So for me, I have passives in dual wield and in my destruction staff. And then any other skill lines such as vampirism, lycanthropy, mage's guild, fighter's guild, etc. that you plan on utilizing for your builds. Now, hand in hand with skills and skill points is gear. Regardless of whatever role you play while you're leveling, I think it's a good idea to level up all 3 gear skills at the same time, so that if you ever do decide you want to utilize the Undaunted passive or change your role, you will have all your gear leveled up, so you'll be able to do it seamlessly. And plus, that Undaunted passive with the 6% bonus stats is always a nice thing to have. Now, I'm going to break down how much of each type of gear you should be wearing by your playstyle. If you're a Magicka user, you want to wear 5 pieces of light, 1 heavy, and 1 medium. If you're a Stamina user, you want to use 5 pieces of medium, 1 heavy, and 1 light. If you're a tank, you want to wear 5 pieces of heavy, 1 medium, 1 light. This type of setup will allow you to gain experience in all 3 of your armor types, but make your main desired armor type skill line increase much quicker. Weapons and armor get leveled up from being worn and used. I'm not 100% sure if weapons will level up faster for having a weapon ability slotted on the bar. On my Nightblade, I've been able to level up my dual wield skill line relatively quickly, because I'm really trying to get that final passive that it has. And I don't use a single dual wield skill, being that I'm a Magicka user and they're all stamina based. And like I said, it still levels up. So I'm not sure if having if a skill from that tree line would make it go faster. But it doesn't matter, just as long as you use the weapon itself, you will gain experience. So the next perspective we're going to move into is the general/unfocused perspective. Now, there's obviously nothing wrong with having this perspective. It's a new game. If it's a new game to you, you're not sure what you want to do, you kind of want to try a little bit of everything. You know you're interested in ESO, maybe you played Skyrim or Oblivion or Morrowind and you just want to play the online game, but all of the class-specific stuff kind of confuses you a little bit, or you aren't sure exactly what you want to do in-game, as you're used to being able to do a bit of everything from past Elder Scrolls games. Now, here is my list on how I think you should be approaching ESO if you're really unsure what you want to do, in addition to the stuff that I mentioned earlier that apply to both. In terms of your race matters a lot in this game, and choosing the right race will allow you to optimally perform whichever role you eventually want to play. Or in this case for you guys, allow you to switch between multiple roles without suffering a lot in terms of performance. Now, just like I said in the other section, I have an entire video that covers this on my channel, and the link will be in the description below. But for you guys, your TLDR is a little bit different than the previous guys. Do you think you one day might want to heal? If so, I would recommend playing an Argonian. You're going to get the most benefit from playing an Argonian, yet still be able to switch between the other roles if you decide healing's not your thing. But if you do want to heal, an Argonian's a good choice. Do you 100%, no matter what, you're a DPS, but you're just not sure what way you want to go DPS and how you want to play DPS? You're going to want to play a Dark Elf. Dark Elf gets boosts to Magicka and Stamina, mainly Magicka, but they still do get Stamina boosts. So you could switch between the 2 different DPS playstyles, or having the boosts in both areas will allow you to kind of pick one and not really suffer in the other. Because Magicka users still do need Stamina, and Stamina users still do need Magicka. So you're not giving yourself playing the Dark Elf. If you know you want a DPS, but you're just not sure how to go about it, Dark Elf will be your best choice. Now, do you think you might one day want to be a tank? If so, you want to play the Imperial. The Imperial gives a lot of good general racial passives, a boost to health, a boost to stamina, and you get kind of like a small little leech. When you deal damage, you have a chance to restore some health back. I don't know if there's another one, but those are the three big ones. Now, do you have no clue what you want to do? You have no clue if you want to tank, if you want to DPS, if you want to heal. You just know I want to play Elder Scrolls, but I have no freaking idea what I want to do. Play the Imperial. The Imperial's passives are good for anybody. You're not going to be, you're not going to be top in the healing charts. You're not going to be top in the DPS meters. But the Imperial has the ability with the racial passives that it has to kind of ebb and flow into every single role and not be the worst. They are the jack of all trades, the biggest jack of all trades racing can really fit into anything and still perform at a good level. The next thing I'm going to cover is attribute points. I would recommend, if you have no clue what you want to do, split your attribute points between stamina and magicka. That way, both types of skills, because your skills will scale based off the amount of magicka and stamina you have, both types of skills are going to get equally strong, so that you're able to test out the different abilities without one site being totally gimped. You know, if you put all your points into magicka and you try stamina ability, it's going to be weak, and vice versa. But if you kind of put your points in between both trees, you'll be able to experience a little bit of both. You might even make some sort of hybrid build if that's what you want to try to do. But I think as a player who has no clue what they want to do, splitting your points between magic and stamina will kind of allow you to taste both sides of the coin. And even though it would be gross licking coins, don't do that. Regardless, you'll be able to kind of try a little bit of everything so that you can eventually decide what you like more. And once you do decide, hey, I want to be a stamina user, or hey, I want to be a magicka user, you want to go to the shrines that are in your city's capital. You can reset your points and then dump them all into one resource. Like I said, try to create some sort of hybrid build. Because regardless, stamina users still are going to need some magicka for class abilities, and magicka users are still going to need some stamina for CC breaking, dodge rolls, and sprints. So like I said, as a new player who's got no clue what they want to do, your best bet is to split between magicka and stamina. Did not find that anywhere, just kind of made it up myself, and I think it would be the best thing for you to do. Now, the next thing I'm going to cover is skills and skill points, and then after that, I'm going to cover gear. Especially for players who are not sure what they want to do, these three areas are very, very confusing, because you're like, there's all these skill lines, I don't know where to put my points, I don't know what I want to do, please somebody help me, dear God. But what I think you should do, starting off with skill points, I have my gear pane open, but I should be starting with skill points. What I think you should do is that you want to put at least one skill from each of your class skill lines on your front and back bar, so that you gain the passive bonuses from all of your class skill trees at the same time, while making sure you're constantly progressing in your 3 class skill lines. Other skill points should be placed in relevant armor trees, weapons that you want to try out, or world/guild trees if you want to use, let's say, mages or fighters guild abilities, and you might need to have one slotted to benefit from the passives. Now, in terms of passives, you want to put all your skill points in your class line passives. No matter what, you're going to be using at least pretty much one skill from each class in your front and back class line on the front and back bar. That's almost a given, at least in all the builds that I've seen. So you're going to be getting all of these passives. For gear passives, you want to put your points into ones that don't require you to wear 5 pieces of any type of armor. So like for this, with Prodigy, with 5 or more pieces of light armor equipped, odds are if you don't know what you want to do, you're going to have a huge mix of armor going on. So don't bother putting any points there. And because you haven't really decided what gear type you want to use yet, because again, you're undecided on your build. Any other points that you kind of want to stick into vampirism or lycanthropy if you choose to go that route, Mage Guild or Fighters Guild if you use those abilities, etc. I would recommend holding off on your weapon passives until you decide on a weapon type. Odds are, with gear, you're going to be wearing at least one piece of every type of gear at the end of the game, so you will benefit from the non-5+ passives no matter what. But with weapons, you're going to have to make a choice later on. So I would hold off on weapon passes until you personally decide what you want to do. Now, regardless of what role you want to play, though, I think it's a good idea to level up all 3 gear skill lines, aka we're moving into the gear section now, as you can see. you want to level up your light, medium, and heavy armor, so that if you ever decide you want to utilize the Undaunted passive to get a 6% boost to stats, you'll be able to, or if you ever want to switch between roles, you'll be able to seamlessly change from one to the other. Now, the gear breakdown for the general user is to honestly just wear a mix of all 3 armor types until you decide what route you want to go with your character. You want to wear whatever you feel like wearing, as long as you have at least one piece of each armor type on. Now, once you eventually decide to pick a direction with your character, the setup once again is for a Magicka user, you want to wear 5 pieces of light, 1 heavy, 1 medium. For a Stamina user, you want to wear 5 pieces of medium, 1 heavy, and 1 light. And for a tank, you want to wear 5 pieces heavy, 1 medium, 1 light. I say this because this type of setup will allow you to gain experience in all 3 armor types, but make your desired armor type skill line, once you have a desired armor type, that skill line will increase much faster. Now, weapons and armor get leveled from being worn and used. I don't think weapons level up faster from having an ability slotted on the bar. I'm not entirely sure. On my Nightblade, I've been leveling up dual wields for the final passive that the skill line brings, but I haven't had an ability slotted because I'm a magic user and their stamina abilities. But in the case of your general user, I recommend just using whatever abilities or whatever weapons you want to try. If you pick up a weapon, you can go, this looks pretty cool. This looks pretty neato. Use it. Give it a shot. That way, all the different weapon types will slowly level up equally. Use 1 skill point to grab the first skill of a weapon and see how you like it. Don't bother dumping all your points into the passives. Just put, your first skill point into that level 2 skill and use it. See how you like the weapon. And then once you decide eventually how to weapon for yourself and what weapon types you like the most, you can choose those. You can choose 2 weapons, the 2 weapons you like the most. 1 for the front bar and 1 for the back bar. Alright guys, that is it for me today. This video took a lot of work to put together, so I really hope you guys found it helpful. I kind of see it as the follow-up video to my Complete Beginner Guide. While the Complete Beginner Guide will teach you about what all the things are in the game, this video will teach you how to go about playing the game and how to go about doing the things so that your first character is the character that you really, really want to stick with. Because I had the same problem where for my first 2 characters I made mistakes with the passes. I had to waste a lot of gold to constantly respec. I eventually decided I didn't like the route that I was going with my character. I felt stuck. But with this character, I sat down, I made a plan, and I executed it. So now I'm level 42, and I feel like I'm going to the end game with everything that I want. So I figured I'd put this video together for you guys so that you guys could have the same type of leveling success that I did. If you liked this video and found it helpful, please, of course, like it. Smash that like button. Let's get to 5,000 likes. No, I'm just kidding. But of course, as always, please subscribe. If you have any ESO related questions or video requests in general, leave a comment below and I'll be happy to help. Remember, this video started from a user request. Kind of got my creative juices flowing. I thought about it and was able to write up this script and create this video. So once again, guys, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.